I'm the Director of Patient Services at the Chordoma Foundation, and I'd love to welcome you today to Chordoma Community Day Chicago. This is our second Chordoma Community Day meeting of this year, and we're so excited to see everybody here and spend the day with you. We have a great program for you today. Before we start, I just wanted to quickly mention a couple things. We're recording all but the art therapy session today, so that one will not be recorded, but all other sessions will be recorded, so they'll be on the website within the next couple weeks. So anything that you might want to hear again or you feel like you missed, we'll be able to watch that again later. There's coffee and tea and some drinks back here in the back of this room, so feel free to get any of those, get up and get some refreshments if needed during the presentations. If you haven't found them yet, the restrooms are out the door and just to the left there. And let us know. Chordoma Foundation staff is here, and so let us know if you need anything during the day. We're going to start off hearing from a couple community members. Frankie, and I'm going to introduce them both now, and then they'll come up and give their presentations. Frankie Cordero is an Emmy-nominated puppeteer and puppet builder, known for his creative work on Sesame Street and Chicago-based Spiffy Pictures' Don Quixote. Did I say it right, Frankie? Okay. He was diagnosed with a skull-based chordoma in 2022 and has since become an active member of the Chordoma Foundation Community Advisory Board. So we're really excited to have Frankie here today. He's been instrumental in our fundraising efforts, and we're very grateful that you're here and going to share your lived experiences with us. And Toni Neff is originally from Bulgaria and has made her Illinois her home since 1998. She resides in Lake Zurich area where she runs her own accounting business, and Toni was diagnosed with a sacral chordoma in 2019 and has become a valued member of our community and an avid supporter of the Chordoma Foundation's mission. So thank you, Toni, for your ongoing support, and we look forward to hearing more about your journey and insights. So Frankie, we'll start off with you. Welcome.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Just setting up this last piece here. Thanks so much for having me here today, and it's nice to see so many faces in person. I first learned about the foundation 2 years ago, and so many of the support groups and events had been virtual, so it's nice to be here and in hometown. My entire life has been incredibly strange and specific, and I've always been a super rare case in everything I've done. So this is me at age 11. My dad took this photo. My parents are here right now. My dad took this photo, and this is a puppet that I built. So I got started with this very specific interest when I was about 3 years old. I was obsessed with the Muppet Show and Sesame Street. And I didn't know what it would really mean, but I knew that I wanted to work for them one day. So I was a clival chordoma case, and this wasn't the first time that I nearly cheated death. This was from 2003. This was on the eve of my 21st birthday. I had worked all summer here in Oak Park, Illinois, to make enough money. I think my quick way of making money back then is I was working it was at a call center, and I worked for about 2 months straight and bought this 1988 Corolla sedan. And my friend and I were changing the tire on the side of the road. I was standing right here next to my gas tank, and a drunk driver came barreling down the road, split me in the car. I tumbled over her car and landed in the road, and I had a spiral fracture and tons of other injuries. And that's what happens to the car. So I was super lucky, considering that that's a total loss right there. So I continued with my interest in puppetry, which brought me to the University of San Francisco. There was an organization called the Puppeteers of America, and I had the opportunity to go there on a scholarship. And this was the first Muppet that I got to meet in person. The puppeteer who played him, Carol Spinney, was an incredibly kind man, and he saw the shy kid in me, and he was on his way to the airport, and he actually pulled me over for a second with my mom and asked if I wanted to take a picture with Big Bird, and they dug the suit out of the car just to take this photo. before heading off to the airport. And that's something I'll never forget. And in some ways, I feel like Carol Spinney, who played this character, has kind of been watching over our entire cast and crew at this point, because so much is shifting in this world, but we try to hold the heart of kindness on this show going strong, and I feel like his presence is always something that keeps that there. So eventually, I was lucky enough to be able to audition for a character on Sesame Street after years of working there. Maybe 1 day a year, maybe 3 years would go by with nothing. I'd do maybe 2 days a year here and there. And I auditioned for a new character named Rudy, who's a stepbrother to Abby Cadabby. I don't blame anyone if they don't know who these characters are, because even she was introduced maybe 2008, and I doubt any of us were watching at that point. So this is the new blended family, and Rudy was a part of it. And I was finally on as a main cast member. These are some behind-the-scenes shots of us doing an aerial shot of a musical number. You can kind of see it in action there. And in this case, I wasn't puppeteering his head. It was just the feet, so I got on his feet there for this little segment. And so I continued that freelance career in New York, and my wife is also here, Maria. We met in 2012. This was the first photo we took together. We met on a show. She was designing costumes, and I was designing puppets for the show. And about a month after meeting each other, I got a job offer to go on tour with these huge animatronic dinosaurs, which it was an arena show, hyper-realistic dinosaurs, very cool wireless animation that we would do from a booth. But that meant that we would have to be split up for a bit. And eventually the long-distance thing was something we could only handle for so long, so she joined the tour, and we got to actually see the world together, which was amazing. We got married. Some amazing opportunities continued with Sesame Street along the way. We had our first daughter, Zora, here. And this was in New York City. That's Stella. This was our first son, who's still with us. This is our place in New York. There's Zora. She slept through her entire first visit at Sesame Street on set. And this was a super rare day where they had Snuffleupagus out. He's not on the show as much anymore, but he's always hanging from the rafters, and he was in this episode. So we were lucky that he was there to be able to capture this moment. These are my two kids. And there we go. So then along the way, here in Chicago, there's, I don't know if anyone recognizes these characters, but this is from the original Mr. Rogers. This is the neighborhood of make-believe, and that's Purple Panda, who at the time, they've reimagined him now, but this is a character that I now play. At the time, it was this, slightly creepy sort of mascot character. It looks like he should have tucked his neck in a little bit, but it's just hanging out there. They luckily reimagined him for this new series, so this is the guy I play now. He's a bit more friendly. It's taken me on some amazing opportunities here. We did a couple events at the White House. I started playing this character who is based on Mr. McFeely, the delivery man from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and got to meet Mr. McFeely in person, and we did some promos together. Let's be sure. And so it's just been a lot of these amazing opportunities and spending time with the kids at home. In some ways, the pandemic was nice for that, spending time with family. So I went to New York in May of 2022, and this was another super rare case where you have 5 puppeteers who play all of the main 5 characters on the show that play Cookie Monster, Elmo, Grover, Oscar, and Ernie and Bert, and they were all in Los Angeles working on another show for the Muppets. So they had their substitutes that would go in. Those substitutes all got COVID, and so I was supposed to come in on a Thursday, but instead I got a call in the middle of the night on a Monday asking if I could fly in on Tuesday and fill in for everybody, which is incredibly rare. You don't usually get to touch those puppets until you're there for like maybe a couple decades or so. So I filled in for the Count one day. I was filling in for Elmo and all of them. But I was also experiencing a lot of sinus issues, and generally just felt off, balance-wise. And there was one day when I was just simply getting out of my car, and somehow when pulling the door open, just split the center of my forehead. The physics of that doesn't even make sense. I don't know why I would line myself up that way, but something just felt off. So I come back from this amazing experience at Sesame Street. I was exhausted, but I got to suddenly play all these characters, and it's kind of like playing dress up as an adult for a moment, getting to step inside of these things. So I go for a routine dental checkup, and I almost opted out of the x-ray, and they highly suggested I did it. So I did the x-ray, and they spotted this small, what they saw as a calcification that looked like it was in my sinuses, the front maxillary sinus. And the dentist highly suggested that I check in with my main physician just to see if it was anything. And she mentioned it another 2 times during my visit there. So at that point, I was like, I need to do this. So I took a screenshot of the x-ray and sent it. And she said, yeah, it's likely nothing, but maybe we'll do a CT scan to make sure. And so we did the CT scan. We got the results back pretty quickly. And the results that I got, as you can see here, that there's a destructive lesion on the clivus making its way toward my brain. That news I got on a Friday morning, and my physician was out of the office from afternoon on. So I was left just with Google, which I imagine a lot of people have been. So all of my friends and family, including the doctor as well, highly suggested I stay off Google. Don't go on Google in the middle of the night. Don't self-diagnose. So I didn't, and it was so much better for my mental health. Who am I kidding? I was on Google every night for about a week straight. And when you do that, you tend to get results such as this one. This is maybe 2 a.m. searching. Let's see what chordoma actually is. There was only so much information in the breakdown. Prognosis. Okay, 7 years. Are you kidding me? My kids were 2 and 4 at the time. It was right before my daughter's recital, so getting through that, with that on my mind, was extremely difficult. This was us after her recital. Still wrapped up in the pandemic year. But what I started to do then, after a lot of Googling in the middle of the night, I just decided to search for some success stories or some survival stories to see if there was anything out there. And a lot of what I found were articles, but then there was actually a TikTok link. So I clicked on the TikTok link and found this. I think the audio went out there for a second. For some reason, the audio's not working. But I came across this TikTok, of all places, to find a survival story. And just, tears were flowing. Middle of the night, finally found something that was a bit uplifting there. And so I had to reach out. So I looked for the handle Bree from Maine on Instagram, and I found her, and she told me about the foundation. It was soon after that. It was Father's Day. Still just trying to get through these days. My wife set up about 7 different consultations for chordoma, setting up this Zoom from home to speak to all of the doctors, and we landed on Mayo Clinic. That day, we were actually in the middle of a consultation. They told us it would be about 5 months until a surgery slot was available, which apparently was okay for chordoma because it's a slow-growing tumor. although not the greatest for your mental health, obviously, to be sitting there for 5 months thinking about this thing that's, making its way in. So I finally, it was 20 minutes into the consultation, they tell us that there's a cancellation and that the patient has COVID that's there on Thursday, and that if I wanted to take that Thursday slot, this was on a Tuesday, that we'd have to be in Minnesota the next day for pre-op appointments. So we packed up the car, and our girls just hung out and watched TV and read books for a bit, and they fell asleep while we were getting everything together, and my family caravanned with us over to Mayo Clinic. There's certain moments, I'm sure some people can relate to, where if you think about certain events in your life, there are these images frozen in your head to represent those as bookmarks. And this one was on the way to Minnesota and seeing this beautiful sunset. This was the exact moment that I was messaging with Bree, who I found from TikTok, and this is when she told me about the Chordoma Foundation. So I always have that to associate with this beautiful sunset here. So I did my pre-op appointments while the kids had breakfast at the hotel. This here, this may be, I don't know if, is anyone else in entertainment or related-ish or business here and there? Yeah. It's a common thing, at least in my social media feed, that there are a lot of, if you get involved with a project that you're excited about, and you've been told and signed some papers saying that you shouldn't talk about it, people still kind of get out there and they say, oh, I've got this thing going on, it's really exciting, and I can't wait to tell you about it, but I'm not going to tell you about it. And then they usually end up not telling you anything about it. But yeah, the sort of quote is like, I have this big thing coming out soon. So this was just something I sent to my wife at the time, coming into Mayo Clinic. I've got something exciting coming out real soon, but I can't talk about it yet. So stay tuned. Getting all set here. So this is at Mayo Clinic. They were marking the leg that they needed to take a bit from to patch some things up. Decided to do this at one point, which I don't fully remember doing. So it was about a 14-hour brain surgery, and they did get everything. This is me afterwards sending a photo to one of my high school friends who happened to be in the hospital with cancer at the same time. We were trading selfies. My family stayed trading, sleeping with the kids and keeping them busy for that time that I was in there. After a couple days, I did my first lap around the hospital hallway with my dad. I don't remember taking this one either, but I was sending these selfies from bed to my friends. More time with the kids, resting, taking naps at the hotel. They stayed busy with making these sweet posters and welcome home gifts. And then we got discharged. It was my first time outside. It felt like it was incredible to finally get outside again and breathe actual air. We spent a couple more days at Mayo Clinic in the area after being discharged just to reset a bit and to eat a lot of ice cream, which we did a ton of at that time. Finally got to reunite with my daughter, healed a bit at home. And at this point, I wasn't sure if I'd be going back to work because the work that I do can be super physical. It's the puppet that you saw, the panda puppet. He's pretty big. From like his waist to his head, he's about here and he's about there. And when you're already kind of overheated and moving around, it's kind of like wearing a fur coat on your arm. And you have to kind of contort your body into all sorts of crazy positions. But it's hard to completely mock and demonstrate here. But I wanted to challenge myself. I was just healing, and I'd say one of the more painful things was healing from the incision. But I would spend my work days in these sorts of positions after. Hello. Yeah, it's not good on the haunches to be doing this all day. It's a little difficult. But I tried sticking with it. So it was within 3 weeks, I was back at this show, Don Quixote in Chicago. This was the first shot of our second season that we did.
I can't wait to see what Donkey planned for us today. Yeah, she said that it was something that you never done before. Wow! Oh, I love doing new things.
So these are usually sometimes 12, but 10-hour days, sort of having your arms up like that. So it was a bit. And I'm super lucky to be directing on the show, so I was able to sort of stay focused and have this be my focus for a bit. Spending more time with the kids. So I began proton beam therapy in October, and I did that for the 8 weeks. This was my first day. Until, if it wasn't for the Chordoma Foundation, I wouldn't have had the support, the daily support, when going through this. I was lucky between the patient navigators to have people to turn to, and then also friends that I made at the conference who had been through this before. And one of my friends, Jessica, talked about how she and her friends would send waffle face selfies from the mask to each other on a daily basis. So that's something that we started doing. This is day 3 of therapy. Got a little bit there when hanging out with the kids. At work, it got to the point where being on my feet was a bit, so I would request a chair just to lean on. There were times when the schedule wouldn't allow for me to direct and do treatment, so I would sometimes take my Zoom in the car and direct until I had to be up on the table, and then go back and finish out the show until 6 o'clock and go home. And that was my way of staying mentally balanced. More waffle face selfies. One of the treatment days fell on Halloween, so our family dressed up as characters from Spider-Verse. Here's me right before heading off to proton beam radiation, and me waiting in the hallway or in the waiting room at Northwestern. This is after hours, so it was extra creepy being there. For one, it was creepy having to get these protons shot into my head, but then also, to be here at 8 o'clock after everyone's gone. And the techs were amazing because they were already in full costume. And I figured I had the green face, the platform shoes. How could we resist staging something like this? And there he is rising up, scaring them away. And they were super into this, and we were all giggling like kids during this entire time. We really did feel like we were a bunch of kids that suddenly got to take over this equipment and mess around for the night. So I continued on, and I was still sort of pushing the limits of my body, and we were working on some Duolingo videos. I played Duo right there at the bottom. Partway through, there was so much intensity on my voice, and as some of you know from doing these clival chordoma proton beam therapy treatments, they do have to hit the back of your throat sometimes. And I use my voice every day between directing and doing these character voices that are way outside of my range. And so it's starting to wear on me a bit. And Dr. Gandhi's here, which is so amazing to see you. It got to the point where I was complaining about that throat pain, and there's only so much I could do with medication for that. And I still remember you saying, Francisco, if you can't, take some vocal rest off of work, I'm going to have to take you out of work. And so I listened to him. And the next day I got back to singing again. Because I couldn't not. I did take it easier, but I did not stop singing. So continued on with more proton beam therapy. There were so many opportunities I didn't want to let go of while I was doing this, so I still flew to New York. This was the first gig I ever did with Sesame Street and the Jim Henson Company, was working for the float for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, the Sesame Street cast float. So I flew to New York, participated in the parade with my character. This is a group shot of all of us here. This is the character I'm the brother to, Abby Kadabi down there, and I still don't blame you if you don't know who she is. My friend Ryan here, who plays Elmo, actually stood by in Chicago for the show that I was working on right after I was out of surgery in case I was too wobbly to go on, in which there were a few cases, and he was amazing to take time away from Elmo of all duties to fly out here and fill in for me. This is just a little shot of what it looks like from the parade route. And from on top of the float. And within the same day, this is something I do every year when I'm there for Thanksgiving, is I try to fly home, make it in time for dinner, which I did. It was an extra depleting trip, but it was worth it to be able to see the kids again. Back to proton beam therapy. More waffle face selfies. I didn't want to turn this opportunity down. They invited us to go and present Emmys in character. So I went from treatment one day and flew straight into Los Angeles, and we went straight into rehearsal off the plane. Here's Maria and I getting ready for the show. This is a new category called the Children and Family Emmys, so they have the purple carpet instead of the red carpet. Us doing press. It was toward the end of treatment, so it was extremely difficult to get through, but I had some painkillers and got through it all. This was the second to last week here of treatment. And, of course, grew incredibly close to these techs and constantly grateful for all of them. Final day, I think Maria took this photo, the kids waiting for ringing the bell, and friends and family nearby to witness that moment. The girls rang it for me, only after they were promised lollipops here. Eternally grateful for Dr. Gandhi here and the plan that he created. It was, a tiring process, but I was lucky that I was able to then hibernate for a bit during that Christmas break. Soothe headaches when I needed to, and at times it was easier to rest alone, but I did soak up as much time with the kids as possible. And overall, just so grateful to be here with my family. This is a tradition we have every year to go to Logan Square to this Christmas house, and it's where my wife and I also got engaged, in front of this house. So I still go back for regular scans every 6 months at this point. And it wasn't so much a part of my life before, but I feel like it's become important to have these traditions, whether it's physical items that you hold on to or rituals. And I felt like I needed to allow myself a little inaction as far as the mental health side of things goes while going through this at the beginning. But I've personally found it to be necessary now. So I feel like I hold on to these traditions of meditating on these things and also just practicing yoga and just trying to center myself for the challenges that come along with this. But overall, just so incredibly grateful to be here for another birthday and to celebrate even more birthdays. My daughter turning 6 recently. And we've had much happier dance recitals since. I owe so much to the Chordoma Foundation. It's been amazing being involved. This is me with Stephen Mandel, who's organized the Team Chordoma race. He's also a survivor of a far worse car crash than I went through, and his story is incredibly inspiring. To go from that to now running marathons again. This is Jessica, who came through Chicago recently. It was just amazing to be able to be together in person after all of our virtual talks. And just happy to be here and have the support of my family and to be here with you all. Like with anything, you never know what the next moment's going to bring. I have no idea what my next scan will bring. I have maybe a couple of things to check in about, but what I do always know for sure is that I'm incredibly grateful to be here at all, but also with all of you in this room. I came into the first conference 2 years ago, and I feel like it's made just the world of difference being able to be connected to you all. between the virtual talks and the Facebook support group. I'd be quite lost without it. So in some ways, this 8-foot yellow canary was previously someone I just met as a celebrity, but now I'm lucky to call a coworker and friend. But I also think of him as the canary that led me out of the coal mine of sorts when that danger was sensed. And so this is an image that'll stay with me and that I'd love to share with all of you as well. There's a little hint at Big Bird and his colorful legs there, and he's got the Chordoma logo worked in as well. But thank you so much for allowing me to share this story, and forever grateful for the foundation and you all. Thanks.